Good afternoon and welcome back to Stupidity. And it's a nice Friday afternoon, the last day of February. And spring is coming. I can see my driveway. It's great. Eternal hope, eternal hope, eternal hope. So, a couple of things today. First of all, Donald Trump has done his rant and rave and thrown a tantrum. Had Zelensky from Ukraine over and threw a tantrum, and I listened to part of it and I just couldn't stand listening to Trump anymore. He said, "You're in no position to argue with me." In front of everybody. You have no position, you're in no position to decide what's happening. I'm thinking, it's his country, it's not your country, shut it. But then he puts it on social truth, whatever he calls his feed, which rolls really nicely into what this whole chit chat is about. My niece put on Facebook a video about a research project about the effects of smartphones on young people, and which makes sense because all her kids are younger. I think the oldest is grade 7, 8. Just hitting teenage kind of mentality. And I listened to it, and it was very interesting. And it talked about how the negative effects of smartphones are having on the individual's child. And what they did was they took a group of students, and lovely British accents, so I'm assuming it's out of the UK, though I'm not always great on my accents. But and they interviewed a set of parents, and the father said, or the parents said, they gave their daughter her smartphone when she turned 11, and the dad went, "We lost her with that cell phone, with that smartphone." He says, "I miss her." And the article goes on to say that the 11s and 12s, they physically took the phone away and sealed them up, and then did EKGs on them for the next few weeks. Every couple of days, the kids would go in and they'd do some EKGs to see if there was any change in the brain patterns of these students who no longer had constant access to their phones. And oh, surprise, surprise, yeah, there was a difference. And the kids became, anxiety levels dropped, paranoia dropped, depression disappeared, etc. And I was like, that one doesn't surprise me at all. And one of the reasons that one doesn't surprise me is, A, yes, I work with people all the time, and I work with kids who have grown up with these smartphones. Like, my grandson doesn't know a life without a smartphone. I mean, he knows what a landline is because my house happens to have a landline. But otherwise, he's got friends who have never had a landline in their house. So he's the exception there. But that generation, those kids who are 20 and younger, have never known life without a smartphone. And the problem with the smartphone is it gives you access to the internet. It's not like the good old cell phones, which I had to pick it up and type, or my flip phone that I do have in my car in case of emergencies. It doesn't have access to the internet. It literally allows me to hit 911 if I have an emergency. That's the only reason I've got it, is so that if I'm out in the middle of the boonies going to one of my clients, I can flip it open and hit 911 and call for emergency. That's literally the whole reason I've got it. Make my kids feel better. But these kids have never grown up with anything else. So the smartphones, and the problem with the smartphones is it gives you access to all those social media things like Twitter, or X now, Instagram, TikTok, all of those things. And because the companies, as much as we really like them to control it, they can't. Like, let's be realistic. And then now they're refusing to double check things. There's a lot of garbage out there that these kids are seeing. So there's reasons why these kids are getting scared and terrified and having to fight depression, because they're constantly seeing in their face all these things that smartphones are accessing, letting them get access, you know what I mean. So if you think back to those people that were here in Canada or wherever, North US, during World War II, the only way they knew what was going on in the war in Europe was to listen to the nightly reports. And if it was World War One, they had to wait for the papers. But by World War II, they now had radio. And so they could listen to it. That's it. Nowadays, these kids are have instant access to videos of the war happening in real time. That's terrifying. For you and I, as adults, it's terrifying. Can you imagine a poor child who's 10 or 11 or 8 who can get on their smartphones and see it instantly? They're still 8. Their logical brain says that's in Europe. It's over there. But do they really, really understand that it's over there? Or is it, I just watched a bomb hit Kyiv and blow up? Or I just saw an article on a Russian missile that hit the cover to Chernobyl. And they're questioning whether there's any nuclear radiation leak out of it. This is absolutely terrifying for us adults, let alone these kids. So this is what this whole article was, this video was about, and I have linked it onto my Facebook. So those people who are get Allergic to Stupidity through my Facebook, you should find it on my feed. If not, go look for it, because it's a very interesting research on it. And it did it from conversations with the students and conversations with the parents. So it was a very interesting video to watch. But let's take it the next step. As they're sitting there saying this is causing anxiety and panic and depression on the kids, it's also happening to us. Because using my example, my mom sitting here in Canada, the only news she would have had were any letters that she got from my dad. And I could say the same thing for his mom. The only letters she would have gotten would be from my dad, what the newspapers told them, or what they heard on the radio. They didn't see it in real time. But we as adults can go online and we can listen to Donald Trump screaming and yelling and throwing a tantrum in the Oval Office and saying Zelensky disrespected the United States in the Oval Office. No, Zelensky just stood up for his country. But that's just what I watched before I started this video in real time. Well, not real time, but it was this morning and I watched it this afternoon. And that's terrifying. Literally, for us adults. And we have a better idea, hopefully, of everything in perspective. So for our kids who don't have it, don't have the life experiences to understand that perspective, they're just hearing it. And there is so much doomsday stuff out there. We've got an asteroid that has a 1 in 32 chance of hitting the Earth in 2032. Okay, that's an interesting piece of information if you happen to be into outer space stuff. But if you're an 8-year-old and you hear that, and are putting it as a city-killing asteroid, and the kid lives in the city, he's 8 years old. That's my city. Because he's only 8. Don't give 8-year-olds more credit than they deserve. They're 8 years old. They better be behaving like an 8-year-old and understand the world from an 8-year-old's position, which is hearing a little bit more out. So if he happens to be living in Toronto and he hears that this city-killing asteroid's coming, to him it's Toronto that's going to get hit. Because he hasn't developed the abstract ability to understand that Toronto is just this little dot in the middle of the massive Earth. By the way, just to help you relax, they've already tracked where it would hit, and it's, if you're in Canada, Ontario, it's going to be basically mostly the ocean, but south of the equator. But that's 2032. There is nothing I can do about it. NASA might be able to send a rocket, and that would be a good one, to hit the asteroid and push it off its trajectory, which they did the experiment a while ago, last year, to see if it could do it, and it did it. It was just on a little asteroid. But they have plans on how to take care of big asteroids like that. But do our kids need to have access to that kind of information constantly? That's scary for us adults. All the climatic change and melting ice cubes, icebergs, and permafrost. Most adults don't understand what a permafrost is. How are we expecting our 8-year-olds to do it? So the article was very interesting. You should, hopefully if you can find it at my feed, that's a plus. If not, go look for it, because it is an interesting one. So let's put this in. When should our kids have access to smartphones? When do they need it? Because, yeah, most households don't have landlines. I mean, some of us do, partially because my tenant pays for it, and he likes the fact that if you're on your smartphone and you call 911, it relays to the closest tower, so 911 operators will get that tower. They won't get where your car is, where you are with the cell phone. With your landline, it will tell you actually that address. So that's one of the reasons. And we have lousy reception here. Actually got awful reception. So do they need it? There's going to be a time when they need a smartphone, because that's how we communicate in this day and age in 2025. But at what age do they actually need it? Mine is, my grandson got his when he started high school. He didn't have it before that. And that was a point at which we also talk a lot in the house. He could start to comprehend how to take that piece of information and start looking at it realistically and not just assume black and white. And my backup example was years and years ago, so we talked 15 years ago, in phones with like Apples, and where you could text people. I was coming out of a class I was covering. It was a grade 3 class, and this young man came barreling out from behind me and was running down the hall and avoiding people, but I was waiting for the collision, and I just put my hand on his shoulder and said, "Whoa, buddy, where are you going?" So I have to get to my locker. Why? Like, thinking meds, umpteen things. He said, "I gotta check my phone to see if anybody texted me." What? Who? Where? Why? He said, "Well, one of my friends may have texted me." Well, his first comment, my first was, "Oh, were you waiting for a text from Mom?" He went, "No, my friends." Okay, then my brain's going, okay, he has questionable friends. Because by that time, the internet's got that we're questioning who kids are talking to on their phones. And he says, no, it's just my friends in grade 3, but they go to such and such a school down the road. Okay, they're grade 3. Literally, that was my logic. They're grade 3, so they were in class, right? Well, yeah. So they couldn't text you. Yeah, but they might have. They can't have their phone in their classroom. But he was in panic mode to get to that phone. He was 8 years old, and he was already addicted to that phone. So you can imagine how these kids who've grown up with smartphones, how addicted they are to it now. For him, it was just texting, because it was 15 years ago. Now these kids have Twitter and Instagram and TikTok and all the rest of it. And they're following their influencers, and they're following all these other things. So that's my message for today. Think about it. And it's not just us, it's just not the kids. It's us big kids too, right? So my tenant gets on his, and we're having a conversation about the cost of my propane yesterday. And I said, he's got his phone out. I was like, okay, so my conversation wasn't very important, was it? And he was, yeah, and he's messaging his girlfriend. Well, I know his girlfriend's a little on the jealous side, so. But it's like, you were having a conversation with me. Please understand you're disrespecting me when you suddenly go to the phone. Your girlfriend can wait 30 seconds. Or you can at least say, just a minute. Jamie has just messaged me. I just have to message her back. Something. Anyways, just a thought about the smartphones and how addicted we are to them, and how maybe we need to start letting go of them. just a whole lot. Okay? Take care.